Good afternoon, members of the media. Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. Today, we welcome you to our party's midweek media briefing, where we will be discussing two important matters that continue to affect the people of this country. Let me, at the very outset, recognize my colleague on my immediate left, the Honorable Rudranath Indar Singh, Member of Parliament for Hoover South, and our Shadow Member of Parliament and Minister, or Shadow Minister with responsibility for Labour and Industrial Relations matters. Today we want to deal with the continued deception and betrayal of the PNM as it relates to our nation and its people. The two matters that we want to address today is the assault on the telecommunications sector, which is owned by the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and what the future holds for this sector, given all that is transpiring. My brother Rudranath will address that matter, that issue, and the continuing saga as it relates to this proposed sellout of our national asset, the refinery, to a company that has no track record, no knowledge, no experience in that particular field, called Whiten Inc. of the United States. We will continue to bring to your attention the reality. So at this time, may I invite my colleague, the Honorable Rudranath Indar Singh, who will address you on the continued deception and betrayal of the PNM as it relates to our telecommunication sector at this time. Rudranath, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Senator Wade Mark, my colleague at the parliamentary level, and as he has indicated, I will focus my presentation here this evening on the latest developments as it relates to our telecommunications sector. And yesterday, the government of Trinidad and Tobago continued their assault and brutalization of the employees of the telecommunication services of Trinidad and Tobago when TSTT served notices of retrenchment on 376 employees who belonged to the bargaining unit represented by the Communication Workers Union, 28 security guards represented by the Estate Police Association, and 67 managers and professionals. This comes on the heels of the most insultive, condescending, and arrogant wage offer ever made to employees of the public service by any government in the political history of Trinidad and Tobago. There is a crisis in industrial relations and collective bargaining in this country. And today, it is the responsibility of the opposition led by the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar to call out, to expose the lies, the deception, the propaganda, and the betrayal of the government of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and the People's National Movement. Because when cables belonging to TSTT can be consistently cut throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and 22 manhole covers disappear or is stolen from the main road in San Grande, you know Trinidad and Tobago is in crisis. And we are saying enough is enough, because the war on the working class, the war on the poor continues unabated. And this was clearly demonstrated yesterday when the government continued to operate in a very lawless, a very reckless, a very dictatorial. It is only a dictatorship emerges in a country when a government breaks the law and undermines the law. And this was clearly demonstrated when the union was sent a letter along with a flash drive containing retrenchment notices to 468 workers. I want to repeat the condescending manner in which the government, through TSTT, attempted to meet and treat with the recognized majority union, the Communication Workers Union. And this disrespect reminds me, if we can remember the way this said cabinet dealt with the closure of the Tourism Development Company, which employees or workers at the time was represented by the Communication Workers Union. In fact, the then line minister, Shamfa Kojo, treated the union with the greatest of arrogance and contempt and disrespect. In fact, when the decision was taken within the cabinet, she charged out of the cabinet room and called the then president, Joseph Remy, via a telephone call which lasted 1 minute and 26 seconds to inform him of the closure. Not even the courtesy of a meeting. And yesterday, the government served these notices, and it was clear-cut. It was realized that the notices were not in compliance with the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, not in compliance with the Retrenchment and Severance Benefit Act, and not in compliance with what is expected as it relates to good and industrial relations practices in Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, the workers were supposed to be given 45 days notice of retrenchment, and they were told that they would be retrenched immediately. That is why I believe that the industrial court granted a stay on the retrenchment, which was lawless and unlawful in terms of what the government attempted to do yesterday. And today I want to establish from the outset that the government of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and his cabinet has never had a plan to restructure and revamp or salvage the operations of TSTT. In fact, this is the third mass termination of workers. We must never forget that in November of 2018, there was a headline, a Guardian article written by one Renuka Singh, that job cuts at TSTT, 503 employees of TSTT received dismissal letters, including the union's President General Clyde Elder, and the then Minister of Public Utilities was one Robert Lehunt. And then in December of 2018, there was another termination, where in the headlines in the Express and so on, approximately 200 workers were sent home. Today, the employees of TSTT and the Communication Workers Union must understand that this is part of the PNM's real agenda, which is to lick up trade unions in terms of their recognized majority union status in the workplace, eliminate collective bargaining from the work environment, and compromise health and safety standards and laws in the workplace. The PNM is sending a direct message to workers. There must be no decent wages, there must be no pension plans, there must be no group health plans. And there are numerous examples in terms of the PNM's playbook. The PNM licked up the Aviation, Communication and Allied Workers Union when they closed BWIA, and their successor company CAL has no recognized majority union. They closed Caroni 1975 Limited and wanted to lick up the Oil Trinidad Sugar and General Workers Trade Union. And in fact, the successor companies, the Sugar Manufacturing Company Limited, Rum Distillers, Caroni Green, there has been no recognized there were no recognized majority union. And then when you go to Petrotrin, you see the playbook continuing as it relates to the closure of Petrotrin, wanting to get rid of the Oilfield Workers Trade Union from the industrial relations environment, and the successor companies, Heritage, Paria, Guaracara, there are no recognized unionized terms and conditions of employment. And we must never forget that the deaths of these four divers were as a result of the compromise on health and safety standards by the board of Paria, led by Newman George, and the management led by one Mushtaq Mohammed. And we must never forget that this was state-sanctioned murder under the government of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. The PNM has always wanted workers of Trinidad and Tobago to be in bondage and servitude. So when they tell you about a memorandum of understanding, when they tell you about being on the side of workers, it is our responsibility to call out the government's lies, deception, betrayal, and twisted facts. The PNM's subcommittee on TSTT, headed by the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Camille Robinson Regis, and comprises of also the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, Stuart Young, the Minister of Public Utilities, Marvin Gonzalez, and the Minister of Finance, Carl Mimbert, and the Minister of Digital Transformation cannot be trusted because their boss, the Prime Minister, has lied to all the employees of TSTT and the people of Trinidad and Tobago from day one. Because you see, my brothers and sisters of Trinidad and Tobago, the people must know of the facts that have transpired, and in fact, the opposition, the UNC, has been prosecuting this matter in the public domain. And I want to read to you from an article written by one Sean Douglas on Saturday, the 12th of February 2022 of the Newsday. PM, TSTT retrenchment, hearsay talk. And in fact, when I posed a question to him in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, the Prime Minister indicated, Madam Speaker, as I speak to you at this House, there is no issue of retrenchment in front of the government, and those numbers that are being raised and bandied about and coming from these particular sources are to be taken as hearsay. That is a Prime Minister who simply cannot help himself in terms of speaking the truth, because we must never forget this is a Prime Minister who met the Vice President of Venezuela, Vice President Delcy, at the diplomatic center with a full delegation, and he told the country that he was not aware of the individuals he was meeting with at the diplomatic center, the official or residence of the Prime Minister. And then when the government was being asked to account as it relates to the future of Petrotrin, the Prime Minister told the country, in fact, his famous quote was, if you had your head in the freezer, close the fridge door and listen, the government was not closing down Petrotrin. And today, the opposition, we want to ask the government of Trinidad and Tobago, what is the mandate of the Cabinet Subcommittee? Because so far, this Cabinet Subcommittee has operated in the most unethical and unprincipled manner. And from where we sit, from the official opposition, it is not about reviewing the government's majority shareholding in TSTT. And today we call upon the Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, and his sham committee of ministers, Camille Robinson Regis, Marvin Gonzalez, Colin Bird, Stuart Young, and the hapless Hasil Bakas, to tell Trinidad and Tobago what is the real plan, what is the real agenda of the cabinet as it relates to the 51% majority shareholding. Not the cabinet has, but the people of Trinidad and Tobago has, as it relates to TSTT. And I am prosecuting this matter because we believe that Rowley and his gang wants to sell off the government's majority shareholding. And where was this ever stated in their manifestos? Was this ever incorporated or agreed to in the memorandum of understanding they signed with the labor movement? And the Minister of Public Utilities is a very shameless man. He has the audacity to tell the country that TSTT is acting in the best interest of the shareholders. Is this acting in the best interest of the workers and the people of Trinidad and Tobago? We want to tell the Cabinet Subcommittee that this is not a private parlor that you are running. This is not your personal money. And we are asking these questions because we want to put the matter in a very transparent way to you, Trinidad and Tobago, this evening. One would recollect that in 2014, Cable and Wireless brought out a company by the name of Columbus Communication or Flow. And because of this acquisition, Cable and Wireless emerged to be a direct competitor to TSTT in the telecommunication sector. And TAT, recognizing, that is the Telecommunication Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, recognizing the monopoly situation that emerged and the impact it would have had on efficiency and cost to consumers, amongst other factors, approved on a conditional basis to permit Cable and Wireless to sell off its 49% shareholding in TSTT within 18 months. And as time would have progressed, Cable and Wireless parent company Global Liberty became the owners of the 49% shares of TSTT. In that regard, the new owners of Cable and Wireless shares are Global Liberty, of which a gentleman by the name of Michael Leaching is a majority shareholder, and I am merely seeking answers on behalf of the shareholders who are the people of Trinidad and Tobago, not a cabinet subcommittee who reports to Prime Minister Rowley. And I cast no aspersion. The opposition is seeking answers in the context of accountability and transparency. And this Michael Leaching, who is the majority shareholder within Global Liberty, is the known boss man of a gentleman by the name of one Angus Young. And this Angus Young is the brother of the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, Stuart Young, who is a member of this cabinet subcommittee of TSTT, on TSTT, and why, after 8 years, TAT have not invoked the agreement with Cable and Wireless to dispose of these shares as what was agreed to in 2014 as it relates to this particular scenario. And that is why we are saying to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, we want the answers in terms of what is the real value of the 51% shareholding in TSTT. And we hope that this sham committee in no way will present a report that would in any way undervalue the true financial worth of these shares, and we are not heading down the wrong road or the road of a fire sale, and whether there is a plan to sell off these assets to some international player in the telecommunication sector at the expense of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And today we will further demonstrate that this government has been systematically reducing the workforce, running down TSTT into the ground, financially strangling the company. We must never forget that the government instructed the then board to utilize $255 million of TSTT money to acquire a company by the name of Masses Communications. And in that regard, I want to raise a very critical and important issue as it relates to this acquisition of Masses Communication, because at the end of the day, my colleague would have chaired the Public Accounts Committee meeting in the committee in the 11th session of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And in that regard, the third session, of the 11th Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, which examined the audited accounts and balance sheet and other financial statements of TSTT for the financial year 2008 to 2016. And in that, the findings of that particular committee, it found that there was a lack of cabinet approval for TSTT's $255 million acquisition of Masses Communication, and it called upon the company to provide a copy of the purchase agreement between TSTT and Massy Communications to the Parliament no later than December of 2017. And also, it found that the board of TSTT as a state enterprise, which the Prime Minister and his cabinet will want you to believe that it is not a state enterprise. It stated that the board of TSTT must seek approval from the cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago when making major investment decisions. What did the acquisition of Massy Communication bring towards the growth and development of TSTT? In fact, they rebranded that to become Amplia, and they have strangled the company by transferring TSTT's assets into Amplia. And in addition to that, at the time of the said purchase, we must never forget that the then Minister of Public Utilities, Fitzgerald Hines, indicated to the country that he had no knowledge of this transaction. And I would further demonstrate here this evening that the financial situation of TSTT is a deliberate position that has been adopted by the government from a strangulation point of view. Because at a meeting with the Communication Workers Union on the 26th of October 2018, the company pointed out that it had operated at a loss of $32.5 million at the end of March 2018. And in the ensuing 6 months, the company said its losses stood at $478.8 million. This loss includes a charge of approximately $500 million associated with unpaid receivables by the Ministry of National Security as it relates to the CCTV client, and given the new reality, represents a fundamental adjustment of revenue going forward. So again, the government through the Ministry of National Security was owing TSTT approximately $500 million and did not ensure or facilitate this payment, so it led to a financial strangulation of this entity. So my brothers and sisters of Trinidad and Tobago, we want you to be the judge. We want you to understand also where this government has systematically strangled, systematically undermined, and we also want to ask the very critical question too. Why did the government fail to give a true sense of accountability as it relates to the crash of the web portal of TSTT, which facilitated online bill payment between the 14th of March to the 29th of March 2022. And I am told that the daily loss was in the vicinity of $13 million on a daily basis. And when I questioned the minister in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago on the 6th of May 2022, the minister said, and it is on the Hansard, when I said to him, Minister of Public Utilities, could you inform this House as it relates to the financial loss or cost that was incurred by TSTT as a result of this malware incursion? The minister indicated, Madam Speaker, unfortunately, I do not have that information at this point in time. So what it tells me, and it has clearly demonstrated to the opposition, is that this crash of the web portal at this point in time could have been some conspiracy to further strangle and worsen the financial position of TSTT, hence facilitating the government wanting to sell off the 51% majority shareholding to their friends, financiers, and affiliates. And this has nothing and was never about the restructuring of TSTT. As I end here this afternoon, I want to signal to the Communication Workers Union, I want to signal to the trade union movement in Trinidad and Tobago and call for a continued unification of the leadership and the rank and file in terms of the respective memberships within FITON, NATUC, and the Joint Trade Union movement, because we have demonstrated to you what the playbook of the PNM is since they have been in office, whether it is the PNM of Patrick Manning, whether it was the PNM of Eric Williams or George Chambers. It is a PNM that has always been anti-worker, anti-people, and anti-union. And we have seen the playbook. So as it continues to unfold at TSTT and their grandiose plan to get rid of the Communication Workers Union, their playbook will continue to unfold at the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, at WASA, at TNTEC, at Lake Asphalt, and I could go on and on. They are coming for you if you do not unify and stand firm and united. The government of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley will not stop in their trust to eliminate the trade union movement from the work environment in Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you, and I now hand over the floor to Senator Wade Mack.
Thank you, my comrade and brother, Rujunath Indarsi. Thank you so very much. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen of our republic, the last time I checked, Trinidad and Tobago remained and still is a democracy. We do not have an autocracy or a criminal dictatorship, even though the government led by Keith Christopher Rowley is seeking to take our nation along a criminal dictatorship path. I want to remind Trinidad and Tobago and the Prime Minister that this country is not run by an Idi Amin of Uganda fame. This country is not run by Burnham, the former president of Guyana, who died years ago. Nor is this country led or run by the emperor known as Bukasa in Central Africa, who is also dead. What we are seeing today is the repeat, as my colleague said earlier, of a playbook of the PNM involving entities such as World GTL, Bridgman Services, Naikwan Energy, RH Gas and Energy Limited, and now the proposed sale and or lease, they are yet to tell us, of our national refinery, the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery, our refinery, estimated at US $7 billion. Enough is enough, ladies and gentlemen. Trinidad and Tobago is not Balize House, where the PNM and the Prime Minister in particular can attempt to bully his way and hurl insults at the opposition merely for seeking answers to legitimate questions concerning the national interest of our nation. That is what we have been doing. And when we look at the Daily Express of Tuesday the 31st of May 2022 on page 4, this is what we have seen: an attempt to paint a picture of Quanten Inc., Quanten LLC, being in charge or moving towards becoming in charge of 2 operations, one in Aruba and one in Angola. And if the Prime Minister is allowed his way, we'll have Quanten Consortium Trinidad and Tobago Limited. So what did we have? We have the Prime Minister indicating in this statement given to the Express, hurling insults at the opposition for merely doing its work, for merely bringing to the attention of the population areas of national concern relating to an enterprise that is owned and controlled by the people, known as formerly Petrotrin, now Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Limited. And the asset that is at stake here is our refinery, the former Pointe-à-Pierre refinery, now known as the Gara Refining Company. So not only did the Prime Minister issue some statement via WhatsApp to the media, but he got his Minister of Finance to open his ministry on the 29th of May, Sunday the 29th of May, and issued a release indicating that our statement and our concerns and our questions were what? Wild allegations and insinuations. And everything as far as the Minister of Finance is concerned is above board. And he says what? He is satisfied that the process has been robust and rigorous and completely above board. And then of course we have the Minister of Energy also following up with a statement on Saturday. He had a statement on Sunday evening, I should say, where he attacked again statements made by the opposition concerning this arrangement that they have been engaged in quite secretly and almost mysteriously. We are not getting answers to this particular question that we have raised and matters that we have raised. Members of the media, I want to tell you from the outset, if proper due diligence is done on this particular project that the government is seeking to embark upon, the government will back off. The government will not pursue that particular project that they are seeking to pursue at this time. I would like to tell Trinidad and Tobago today that the playbook that we have to address, because it is a playbook, it is a repeat of what I said earlier of the World GTL, Bridgman Services, Naikwan, and RH Gas and Energy. Members of the media, I just want to remind you, this is a switch and bait exercise that the government is seeking to engage Trinidad and Tobago in. It is what is called like a chameleon that is changing its colors and complexions every move that you make. And I will show you in a short while where two companies that have been at least advanced by these players as having a success story or moving towards achieving a success story. I refer to Quanten Consortium Aruba LLC, and I refer to Quanten Consortium Angola LLC, both of them selling dreams to the people of Angola and selling dreams to the people of Aruba, and wanting to come to Trinidad and Tobago to sell the people of Trinidad and Tobago dreams. Would you believe that as we speak, the Angolan authorities, having issued an international bid for the construction of a refinery, and I want to tell you that in issuing that bid for this international refinery, which was done on the 31st of January 2020, called the Soyo Oil Refinery, there were nine competitors or 9 bids. I will just make and bring to your attention 2 of the participants or 2 of the competitors that sought to tender for the refinery in Soyo. One name is Quanten Consortium, and the other is ATES Nebes Angola. It's here. This was on the 31st of January of 2020. Members, these companies, one succeeded. That is Quanten Consortium Angola LLC. Members of the media, I want to tell you, don't ever forget this name. ATES, ATIS, Nebes, NEBEST, Angola. They put in a bid for the refinery. They didn't succeed. Members of the media, I have a release dated the 26th of May 2022, issued at 5:33 out of Angola. This release mentioned the consortium, same consortium, Quaiten Consortium, to build, construct, design, and own the refinery. Listen to the players involved in this consortium. Quaiten LLC, TGT Inc., Aram and Sharp, two young men out of Stanley Morgan or Morgan Stanley, and a company called Artes Nabes Angola. Look, it's here. It's here. This same Artes Nabes Angola, just 2 years previously, put in a bid for the refinery, to build the refinery. In 2022 of May, they are part of the same group headed by Quaiten LLC Angola to build the refinery. What I'm saying to you, members of the media, is that this company is switching and baiting. This company is doing all sorts of things as they seek to mamagai and fool the people of Angola. But you know what is even more alarming? They tell the people of Angola they are going to invest $3.5 billion to build the refinery. Today, we are in the month of June. Today is 2022. They promised to build that refinery and complete it in 2024. There's a new statement out that it may be completed in 2025. Not only that, they indicated publicly that they had a reputable firm called KBR initially, and they were actively involved in Angola to help them build this refinery. Today, you cannot see KBR anywhere. So the question that has to be asked is, why is this company shifting and moving the goalposts every second of the day? Not only that, members of the media, look here, we have it. It is another publication involving what? Aruba. It is called, ladies and gentlemen, Quaiten Consortium Aruba LLC. It is a publication entitled Antillians Dagbag. It is dated December the 18th, 2020. The headline is Editor's Analysis. How renowned is Quaiten himself? And I want to read a few paragraphs of this release, which is a Dutch newspapers, and it states, Jeff Myers, one of the two owners of Quaiten Inc., registered in San Jose, California. They are saying that Jeff Myers Van Quaiten, who now has a letter of intent in his pocket to get the San Nicolas refinery in Aruba up and running again, says his company wants to operate only with reputable companies that have oil from different sources. It goes on, that sounds good. Who would not want to work with reputable parties? But the question is asked, how renowned is Quaiten himself? That is the individual, Jeff Myers. His full name is Jeff Myers Van Quaiten. That's how they write the name. The Aruba government of Prime Minister Edwin Weaver Cross, who signed the letter of intent with much fanfare and a photo shoot, undoubtedly has better equipped device to gather reliable intelligence. That is what this says. It goes on to tell the world that a simple search on the World Wide Web does not yet yield convincing material for a company that says it will, brothers and sisters, spend a sloppy amount of $3.5 billion in the revival of the almost century-old Aruba refining industry. This particular article goes on to tell the world that if you do a simple diligence of this company, what will it reveal? It will reveal, brothers and sisters, that this company is lacking in experience to carry out such an endeavor. And therefore, they are telling you that you have to pay attention to this company. It is in this article, ladies and gentlemen, they are saying that you have to pay attention to this company that does not have the capacity, the innovative capacity, the experience to perform such an endeavor or to carry out such an endeavor in the Caribbean as it claims to have. So, members of the media, this is another indication that this company called Quanten Inc. is an inexperienced company, has no knowledge and experience and capacity to engage in the refinery business. That is what we are being told. I want to make it very clear to Trinidad and Tobago that there is no refinery established as we speak in Angola. The impression is being given that there is a refinery in Angola. There is no refinery in Angola. There is an effort to build, to design, build, own, and manage a refinery that is costing, they claim, to build some US $3.5 billion. When that will be built is anybody's guess. We don't know. What we do know is that the same players who are promising to build a refinery in Angola for $3.5 billion are the same players that the Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Company Limited is currently in talks with. You know, members of the media, I want to remind you, it was in 2004 that David Loring came out of the United States to sell Malcolm Jones a dream. It was called the World GTL. They promised they will invest. They promised they will bring finance. They will bring technology. They will bring managerial skills. Ladies and gentlemen, they did not put one black cent into that project. You know who ended up paying for that project? You, me, and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It cost us $3.3 billion. And you know what? We had to go and raise on the international capital market $750 million in 2007. And that was supposed to be paid off in May of 2022. We had to also go on the international market to raise $850 billion for dreams that were sold to Malcolm Jones and his crew at the particular point in time. And now we have a government that is seeking to sell us dreams at this time. We are saying to the people of Trinidad and Tobago that how can the government tell this country? David Abdullah asked the question, you couldn't sell Patriotic Energies and Technologies, the refinery. And the reason why you couldn't sell them is because you said there was a lien on the assets by unknown faceless creditors amounting to billions of dollars. The Prime Minister must tell us today whether the assets of the refinery and Paria fuel, whether there is a mortgage. And the last time I checked, there is a mortgage, there is a lien on the assets of both Paria fuel and the refinery. So you must come clean and tell us, how are you going to sell or lease this particular asset when creditors own the assets? And also, Mr. Prime Minister, we would like you to share with us, are you only going to sell the refinery? Because that is what is being said in the releases that you have released so far, or that you have put out so far, that you are going to sell or lease the refinery to Quanten Inc. Could the Prime Minister and his Minister of Energy clear the air as to whether you are also going to sell the assets and the infrastructure and the farm tanks of Paria Fuel Trading to Quanten Inc. that will soon become Quantent Consortium Trinidad and Tobago Limited, and that can have any players involved. We can have drug lords involved in that. We can have Bill Gates involved in that. We can have any company involved in that. We don't know. Because it is a consortium. So the Prime Minister and his Minister of Energy and Finance must tell Trinidad and Tobago whether you are going to sell Paria Fuel Trading Company along with our refinery to Quanten Consortium Trinidad and Tobago, which is purportedly owned by these men calling themselves, by the two electricians, I should say, out of San Jose, California. These are issues that are crying out for clarification. So we are calling on the Prime Minister to indicate, one, is there a lien on the assets of the refinery and Garakara and Paria? Our information is there is a lien. It is owned by creditors. Then explain to Trinidad and Tobago how you're going to sell or lease these assets that are owned by creditors to the tune of billions of dollars. You recently increased and extended our $750 million that was supposed to come to an end in May of 2022. You have now pushed that up to 2026, and I understand it's now going to 2029 at a rate of interest of close to 9.7%. So these are matters that we need to clarify and we need answers on. And in closing, let me make it very clear to Trinidad and Tobago. We will not, as the alternative government, as the loyal opposition in Trinidad and Tobago, stand idly by and allow political scallywags, rascals, and educated hustlers to kidnap for a song and a dance the assets that belong to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We own Petrotrin, we own Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Limited, we the people own Paria, we own the refinery, we own Heritage, and we are saying that the government and the people must take charge of these assets and make it work in the interest of the people rather than giving it away through concessions. And in closing, let me just remind the people of this country, just recently, the same consortium called Quantum Consortium Angola LLC signed with the Soligon, which is the Angolan Petrotrin version, a deal in which that company was able to get 712 hectares of land, or 1,800 acres of land, purportedly to build a refinery, which remains a mystery for the people of Angola. So is the same playbook being unfolded in Trinidad and Tobago? Are we going to experience the same kind of situation as we did with Naikwan, where they use the assets at Pointe-à-Pierre to go to Republic Bank to get a loan for US $120 million, and 1 year, 1 month later, after the plant blew up at Pointe-à-Pierre, nothing is taking place at Pointe-à-Pierre. Nothing is happening at Pointe-à-Pierre. However, $120 million US borrowed on your strength and my strength, based on our ownership of the land at Petrotrin at Pointe-à-Pierre, was used by a fellow called Ainsley Gill and the Naikwan gang in order to use that as security. That is what I understand. And Mr. Gill, if I'm wrong, you clear the air. If I am wrong, clear the air. All we are saying to you is that we do not want our assets to end up in the same way as Naikwan Energy Services Limited ended up. Thank you very much, members of the media. And if there are any questions, we are willing to clear the air on further areas of clarification on these two very important issues: the sellout of the telecommunication sector and the sellout of our refinery, and possibly the sellout of Paria Fuel Trading Company for a song and a dance.
A few questions.
Yeah. Senator Mark, given the information on the refinery coming forward, what action will the opposition take at the level of Parliament to get the government to account on the Quantum matter?
That is a matter that we will discuss at the level of our party to determine what devices, what mechanisms we are going to use and employ in order to bring the government to book and to hold the government to account. Whether we have begun to pose questions, I have already filed a few questions on this deal, where we are going to raise matters on the motion for the adjournment. We are going to deal with matters of urgent, definite public importance. We are going to file private members' motions to bring the government to book. We cannot allow the government to use this playbook as they did with World GTL, where we are paying back $3.3 billion to various creditors out there who we borrowed that money from. Because why? We did not learn. We allow a smart man called David Loring out of the United Kingdom to sell Malcolm Jones a dream. We are now paying for that dream. They put out no money. They used us. They took our money. We borrowed. We are now paying back. Let that not happen to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and the UNC, as a loyal opposition, as the alternative government, will ensure that the government does not sell out our assets for a song and a dance.
MP Ngarsing, is it that the workers were offered sizable settlement payouts or merely 6 weeks' pay? Also, what are the chances of the workers being reinstated?
Well, those are questions for the Minister of Public Utilities and the Prime Minister, because at the end of the day, he has appointed a cabinet subcommittee. I cannot speak to what offers have been made. I would assume that the offers are in the context of their existing collective agreements and so on.
MP Nursing, you mentioned the purchase of Massey by TSTT, right?
Yes.
Are you suggesting that that sale is partly or largely responsible for the retrenchment of the same thing?
Well, the CEO of TSTT, Ms. Lisa Egada, has continued to lament about the financial position of TSTT. And I am saying, the opposition is saying, because and I will reiterate it here again, the Public Accounts Committee, in the third session of the 11th Parliament, examined the audited accounts and balance sheet and other financial statements of TSTT for the financial years 2008 to 2016. The membership at that time was Senator Wade Mark, MP Tim Gopi Singh, MP Senator Jennifer Baptiste-Primus, MP Fitzgerald Hines, MP Sherian Critchlow-Coburn, MP Shamfa Kujo, and Senator Small. And they found that this $255 million that was used of TSTT's money to purchase Massey's Communication did not have the cabinet approval, and in fact the committee asked for a copy of the purchase agreement between TSTT and Massey's Communication to the Parliament no later than the 31st of December 2017. That has not been forthcoming. And in addition to the use of this money and all of assets, quite a substantial amount of TSTT's assets have been transferred into this new entity, Amplia. I did indicate to you also that the Ministry of National Security owed TSTT approximately $500 million as it relates to unpaid receivables through this arrangement of the provision of CCTV cameras and so on. And this is what we are saying, that the government deliberately strangled TSTT so that they could close TSTT because TSTT has been reduced to a shell, and the real agenda of the government is to sell out the 51% majority shareholding of TSTT to this international player in the telecommunication sector. And this is why we are calling upon the Prime Minister to state, indeed, if it will be sold to Global, trying to find the
Global Liberty.
Global Liberty, of which Mr. Michael Lichin is a major player, who is the boss man of Mr. Angus Young, and this Mr. Angus Young is the brother of the Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs, Stuart Young, who is a member of this cabinet subcommittee that is supposed to review the 51% majority stakeholder government shareholding in TSTT. Connect the dots.
I just want to add to what my colleague has said by indicating that the TSTT financial audited statements would reveal that upon acquiring Massey Communication, which is now unclear, the viability and the profitability of TSTT has almost collapsed, has been declining over the period 2017 to the present time. And it is noteworthy that TSTT between 2016, 2017 to the present time may have written off over $2.5 billion in receivables that they failed to collect. So you can imagine a company like TSTT writing off over $2 billion that they failed to collect. Had they collected that money, the jobs of these workers would have been secured. Why the TSTT management and board of directors did not collect those monies? Why did they write off this sum of money? They alone can answer.
Senator Mark, the Prime Minister has repeatedly said that the refinery cannot function without Paria, because Paria has assets that the refinery needs and so on. So far, the government hasn't made it clear how this new deal would work in selling the refinery. Do you think that the Minister of Finance or the Minister of Energy needs to come out and state whether or not Paria fuel is also up for sale?
I believe that the narrative that the government has been peddling, including the Prime Minister, also Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Energy, is simply this. Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Company Limited is currently in discussion with the successful bidder for the sale or lease of the Guayakara Refining Company. That is the narrative. If you look at their releases, they never mention once Paria Trading Fuel Company Limited. But it is our view that based on what the Prime Minister said some 2 years ago, that the government intends to sell or to lease both the refinery and the assets of Paria Trading Fuel Company Limited to their preferred bidder. It is incumbent, if that is untrue, if what we are saying is untrue, for the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Energy to come out publicly and to state categorically that they will not be selling the assets or leasing the assets of Paria Trading Fuel Company Limited, and that what they are negotiating at this time is only the sale and lease of the refinery. It is incumbent upon the government to clear the air and to state categorically its position on the sale and or lease of both assets, refinery and the assets of Paria, which is made up of the tank farm, the infrastructure, and every other associated asset with that particular company. So yes.
Given that Paria is responsible for importing all of our fuel, do you think that it could have serious consequences if Paria is being sold to this quantum consultant?
It is not only going to have serious consequences, it is going to endanger our energy security. It is highly irresponsible, almost bordering on criminality, for the government after 100 years as a producer of oil, and then in the late 70s, natural gas, and having been able to provide the country with its own energy security for the last 40 years, including the recent sellout and closure of the Pointe-à-Pierre refinery. We are still at this time, even though the refinery is closed, Paria is importing our fuel. Paria is importing what is called aviation fuel or jet fuel, kerosene. It is importing diesel. It is importing premium. It is importing super gasoline because of the experience we have had. Why would a government want to put our energy future, our energy security in the hands of a group of unknown individuals who, from what we are seeing, have no experience, no knowledge, no capacity? They bring no finances to the operations. They claim that they have technical knowledge and managerial experiences. We do not think so. And that is why it is going to be extremely dangerous. And that is why the United National Congress is calling upon the government not to sell out our refinery and not to sell out Paria fuel assets, to put those assets and the fuels that they import in the hands of private individuals that can hold our population to ransom. We do not support that arrangement whatsoever. It is dangerous, and we cannot sustain and entertain such a criminal kind of activity that the government wishes to engage in.
I think that's it for you. We have no more questions.
Okay, well, members of the media, if there are no further questions, may I, on behalf of the United National Congress and my colleague, the Honorable Rudranath Indar Singh, to sincerely thank you for covering our midweek media briefing today, and we look forward to joining you once more on Sunday as we continue our Sunday weekly press conferences on Sunday, and we are going to resume our Monday night meetings next Monday. So with those few words, may I thank the media for covering this event. May you all have a very wonderful and safe evening, and thank you very much for covering our media conference and briefing today. Thank you.